Chapter 2, Operation Section Preliminary Instruction. Better to maintain satisfactory state of the charge of the battery, realize the good battery life, the observe the carefully with the battery instruction, paragraph 116 through 121. An electrical meter is provided with the gauge panel for the purpose of allowing the engineer to observe the charging generated the function that the battery is being charged. See, when the voltmeter is used, purpose of the needle is first long red band. It indicates that the battery is in bad condition, being discharged. With the needle band of the white band indicates that the battery is neither being charged nor discharged. The needle green band indicates that the battery is receiving a normal charge. When the needle is in small red band beyond the green, indicates that the battery is in overcharge. And the engine crew would report the maintenance man when the voltmeter indicates a red band from on over the dial. Note, the pointer may be in the white band just below the green band of the for a short time after the engines are first started. D. An ammeter, when used, indicates the condition of the battery, generally amount of the current, but the current shown with the change of the portion of the dial as proportional to the state of the charge of the battery. As the point approaches zero, the battery gets nearer to the full charge condition. The point is discharge point of the dial. The battery is delivering the state of the receiving current. When the condition exists for the normal operation, it should be reported that the maintenance man. It should be noted that the voltmeter and ammeter will show the condition of the battery unless the change charging voltage normal operation at such value to maintain the battery at a proper charge. E. To protect the battery against the discharge short circuit, the locomotive is equipped with 6 ground connections removed from the battery. This must be restored before putting the locomotive in service. 7. The battery switch. This switch is provided with a disconnect the battery from the circuits. It must also be open when leaving the locomotive with an idle speed. It must be open whenever working on any of the control circuits. If necessary to work on any of the circuits, the device is not protected with a cutout switch. The ground must be removed from the battery. Alright, 8. Control switches. To prevent the battery discharging, be sure that all switches in the circuit breaker, all switches in the circuits with the battery supplies current for open when leaving the locomotive standing in idle. Throttle and control handle. Always leave the throttle handle and the control handle in the position will ensure the traction motors will remain disconnected from the generator whenever the engines are started to prevent the accidental starting of the locomotive. Never leave the operation position without first placing the reserve handle in the neutral position. If the reverse handle is in portable type, remove it from the further protection. 10. Load indicator service and load time limits. The locomotive is designed for switching, transfer, and movement not exceeding 1.5 hours continuously during duration of the full power. Following the load time limits applied only for such service. The locomotive is not intended for the railway road work, long transfer, or long industrial haulage service. It can be damaged very heavily loaded for too long of a time. Such damage is caused by heating depends upon the length of the time the load is carried as well as the size of the load. See a load indicator when the use the actual ammeter with the special dial marks and bands green, yellow, and red instead of amperes. The load indicator will enable the operator to avoid the damaging locomotive, and the following rules are observed. Alright, green, operation for the pointer with the green unrestricted as long as the locomotive is employed with the service for what is designed and described above. Yellow, operation for the pointer in the yellow must not exceed 1 hour total in an 8-hour period. Red, the operation of the pointer of the red should be confined with the starting of the shorting of the movements of never over 4 minutes at the time, or whenever the time is in red 2 minutes or more. Operation should not be repeated frequently. The total time of the red-yellow added to the gather must not exceed 1 hour to the 8-hour period. When starting the training, the operation should not hesitate to get the red go into the red, advance to the throttle as far as possible without slipping the wheels. In this way, the time in the red will be kept to a minimum. Alright, Section 2, Preliminary Operation Speed. Caution, do not operate the locomotive at any higher speed than given under the locomotive data. 12, the diesel engine. Before starting the engine, before doing any of the work on them, read the engine instruction, Technical Manual 55-1001. Be sure the engine is in operating condition. While operating the engines, make the regular check of the lubrication, oil pressure, cool water temperatures. If the engine becomes overheated with any reason, never add water into the cooling system until the engine has cooled off. D. After pulling heavy loads, allow the engine to idle for a few minutes before stopping to prevent damage from the boiling of the cooling water. 13. Brakes. Never depend on the air brakes to hold the locomotive on the grade of the compressor as a short shutdown. Before starting the locomotive, make sure the brakes operate properly, and that the air pressure in the reserve is normal. The emergency apply brake at once, shut off the power afterwards. D. Engineers operating with the locomotive for the first time should be continued to apply with the brake sooner than that would be the steam locomotive in order. Stop at the given spot, but this because the electrical locomotive has much less friction with the steam locomotive. 14, leaving the locomotive before leaving the locomotive, shut down the engines, open all the switches, and set all the doors to the windows are closed. Close the radiator shutters, set the handbrake if the danger of the engine cooling water freezing, drain entering cooling system until the antifreeze is used. 15. Water and lubrication oil. Before starting the engine, be sure the water and system and air are filled, and also see that the engine is supplied with the proper quantity of suitable lubricating oil. 16. Lubrication. Before starting the engine, before running with the locomotive, the lubrication instruction for the engine's compressor. Also refer to the locomotive lube order 55-1001 and 55-1263 in Figure 49 for Figure 50. To be sure that all the parts have been properly lubricated. Caution, do not reach inside the frame and frames of the generators or motors while they are in operation. Caution, do not leave tools or any other loose material near the electrical equipment with the locomotive in operation. Section 3, starting and stopping. 17, starting the power plant. Before attempting to operate the locomotive for the first time, observe all the foregoing preliminary instructions and the instruction for the engine and the equipment. Be close to the battery and the control switches. See the reverse handle in the neutral position, throttle handle in the idle position. In cold weather, the necessary to advance the throttle beyond the idle position to getting the engine started. Start the engine and pushing the start button with the respective engines and observe that the engine operates properly with the lubricating oil pressure builds up. Allow the compressor to pump air until the main reserve air gauge shows no further increase with the pressure. See that the compressors function properly. To pump up the air quickly, advance the throttle handle to operate the engines at about 3/4 of the speed of the first. Allow the engine to operate with the idling speed with a sufficient length of time to warm up. Reduce the engine speed to idling. When finished pumping up the air, observe the operation of all the belt drives driven with the other equipment to see that the air function properly. Apply the air brakes to see that the operating properly. See the battery is being charged and indicated with the battery meter. Diesel electric locomotive operating in the cold climates provided with the heater to warm up the engine before starting. K. The diesel engine has no ignition system. Depends on the heat developed in the compression. To make it fire, therefore, all the periods of the shutdown during the cold weather, whether the engine has cooled down or the air temperature, there's danger in completing the discharge of the battery. Continue with the checking before the cylinder is warm enough to start. To guard against the condition of the kerosene heater to provide with the purpose of the warming up the cool water in the engine jacket. To start the heater, to make sure that there is sufficient kerosene in the supply tank. Open the valve of the line between the top two of the water heater for the engine water jacket. The valve should be closed with the engine operation. The thermostat should be the water circulation with the radiator. M. Light the wick, adjust the clearing of the blue flame, and readjust it if necessary after the heater has warmed up, avoiding smoke. Do not attempt to start the engine until the engine temperature shows at least 60 degrees, 70 degrees on the engine temperature indicator. O. After the engine starts, shut down the heater and close the valve and engine cooling system. 18. Stopping the engine. To stop the diesel engine, move the throttle into the extreme forward position. The locomotive is provided with the engine shutdown rods. Also put the bottom marked upon the shutdown. Hold it until the engine has come to a stop, and then open the control switch. If any of the time the engine fails to stop under normal conditions, or if it overspeeds, pull the emergency shut-off pull-off button. Close the shut-off cock on the side of the fuel pump, and if the engine is provided with these features, if the throttle valve should stick in the open position, close it by hand. Section 4, Operational Locomotive, General. It is assumed that the locomotive has been made ready to operate with the accordance with the foregoing instruction. The engine is operating with the main reserve fully charged. At any time, it is impossible to remove the power from the traction motor by shutting off the throttle. The control switch should be open. B. Before attempting to start the locomotive, be sure that the handbrake is released more of the reverse handle to be positioned as desired when the throttle handle is in advance. Certain control switches are energized with the closed line with the contractor established with the connection between the traction motor generators and create for the current with the traction motor's acceleration of the locomotive to obtain the advancing of the throttle handle, shunting the connection of the traction motor fields when they automatically establish in the proper unit. In order to change the direction motion of the locomotive, the throttle handle should be placed in the position for the idle engine. If the locomotive brought to the stop and the reverse handle is removed, the locomotive should never be reversed while in motion, except in the case of extreme emergency. Whether the tendency for the wheel to slip of the rail should be sanding the throttle to close them slightly until the wheel stops. In the case of the wheel, loosens the grip of the entire loose spin. They are usually necessary to move the throttle handle into the idling position before the wheels take hold. Alright, E. When the coming into the rest of the grave of the brakes should be applied with the locomotive before closing the throttle handle. Likewise, with starting with the ascending of the grave, do not release the brake locomotive until the throttle handle has been opened sufficient amount to prevent the train and locomotive from drifting backward. If the current fails the locomotive for any of the reasons, close the throttle, and if on a grade, apply the brakes. Do not operate the locomotive at a higher speed than 40 miles an hour. 20. Overheating engines. Do not stop the engine immediately after a hard run. Circulation of the water depends upon the circulation of the pump. When engines are shut down, the pump also stops. The iron masses of the engine pull down the fuel to absorb sufficient heat of the boiling water. Circulation stops less engine idle for 5 minutes before shutting them down. B. If any of the reason water supply has failed, do not turn the water in cylinders until they have become normally cool. See, the heads liable to crack if they become hot and water and they turn into them. Operation of one power plant only. The locomotive may be operated at any time of the TAGO 3747 A February with the open one power plant simply with leaving the other plant shut down. Proper caution should be taken so that the water shut down engine does not freeze. 22. Operation with the motors cut out. In case of trouble making the necessary to cut the traction motor to shut down the engine furnishing power to the motor, with the motors cut out, the special care should be taken to avoid pulling heavy loads operating with the full open throttle. 23. Operation of the air brake. For operation of the air brakes, refer to Technical Manual 55, 2021. Moving the locomotive dead. When the locomotive is hauled to the dead end of the train, all the switches should be open and include the battery cutout switch of the air brake. Dead end of the fixture should be set as described in Technical Manual 55, 2021. If the haul is long or the train exceeds the maximum safety speed of the locomotive, remove the pinions and from the traction motors. Refer to the pinion removal paragraph 87. The compressors. Other auxiliary machines, the compressor and other auxiliary machines driven with the V-belts from the generator adjustments for the belts and tension provided with the moving of these machines. They are based for the change of the distance between the pulley and the center. A fairly accurate guide determining with the correction of the tension of the belt to make adjustments so that the belts could be depressed 1 inch for the midway between the pulleys. 26. The temperature control of the cooling water. Diesel engine have the fan belts directly in the engine to provided with the thermostat for the cooling water outlet permits the water to circulate through the engine circuit and cylinder block and shut off from the radiator when the temperature of the water in the engine is below that of which the thermostat is set. During cold weather, it is necessary to partially entirely close the shutter in front of the radiators in order to maintain proper temperature. See, the control lever of the operating cab is marked with the shutting position of the radiators shut. Alright, if it becomes difficult for the operator to shut, it's very likely that they caused by lack of lubrication of the hinge pins, the vanes for the operating lever pin joints. For lubrication, utilize oil, especially during cold weather. 27. Battery charging equipment. In general, the function auxiliary generator of the charging generator is to supply with the control and light and load, and also charge the batteries on locomotives with more than one power plant. The generators are connected with the parallel of the battery charging. The battery charging equipment for each of the power plant consists of the voltage regulator, reverse current relay, and generator mounted on the engine driven from the gearing. 28. Engines. Starting equipment. In this type of the this step is starting the traction motor is used the motor with the facility without excessive drainage of the battery. The generator is provided with the series field wheel winding. 29. How the power is obtained. The engine supplies the mechanical power to the generator, which is converted with electrical power for the traction motor auxiliaries. Each of the engine is respectively generators at all times electrically as well mechanically and independent with the power plant unit. The control is arranged for the opening of the throttle for the open position, increase the speed of the engine, and engines that increase the power furnished with the generator will furnished with the power of the traction motor. The throttle adjustment should be maintained with each of the engine which of the good condition that takes the power of the share of the load. 30. Main circuit. The main circuits for each of the power plant would include the following equipment: the traction generator, the traction motor, the contactor for the connection between the traction generator, the traction motor, the reverse of the changing of the direction of the current of the traction motor fields. Across the traction motor field that is connected with the field shunting of the resistance, which would used to weaken the field operation of the higher locomotive speed, but in order to obtain the maximum engine utilization over the wide range of locomotive speeds. 31. Generator field. The shunt should be supplied with the current finished with the generator itself and must also receive the part of the excitation current with the battery depending on the scheme of the connection. 32. The precaution. Do not leave the locomotive unless the engines are shut down with the battery cutout switch or the control switch are open and closed with all the windows, doors, and set the handbrake when the locomotive is standing idle. The engines are remain shut down. There is a danger in engine water. The temperature falling below the freezing. The system should be completely drained unless the antifreeze is used. Section 5. Simple troubles. Refer to the locomotive connection diagram, figure 48. 33. The failure engine turnover to make sure the battery and control switches are closed. These starting with the connectors of the GC1 and the GC21. Close. If it does not close, to check the battery control fuse to replace the same. If blown, the starting contactor still does not close. Check the open circuit breaker and the start button or the contact and control switch for the operating of the coil with the starting contactor. If the starting contactor operates but still the engine will not turn over, the starting contactor may in connections be defective, then if the battery is probably discharged, it should be recharged with outside source. If the battery is not discharged, the engine can be not be started. The generator is probably as faulty, and most of likely the trouble being grounded with the connection or burned out or loose connections in the main circuit. 34. Engine started locomotive will not move the first position of the throttle. See the line contactors P1 and P2 and or P3 and P4 close. If they do not close, look for poor. Connection to the starting contactors and interlock throttle control switch with reverse control fingers, reverse throttle, the line contactors operating connection. If the contactors do not close, still the locomotive does not move. So see if the brakes are released and the reverse and set in the proper position, and that the contacts in good condition. If none of the remedies in trouble to obtain, the voltmeter check the generator voltage. See if that the builds up. It does not properly be open circuit of the generator for shunt field winding. If the battery does not charge, check the replace if necessary. If the fuse is in charge in the generator circuits. Section 6, Inspection. 35, Inspection Routine. If the inspection worksheet for the continuation of the inspection maintenance of the Department of Army Diesel Electric Locomotive prepared with the appropriate Department of Defense Form 70, 71, 72, 73, 74. For these outline procedures filed with the inspection locomotive designed to cover a given period of time. These are the progressive program, the preventive maintenance accomplished. Correct any of the defects observed during the operation of the inspection during period, if necessary, to make the correction of the time of the occurrence. 36. Lubrication. Lubrication required should be performed during the initial inspection period. Is the schedule of lubrication. Refer to the lubrication 55-1001, figure 49, and lubrication 55-1263, figure 50. The inspection before leaving the terminal. Check out the radiators proper for the height of the cooling water. See the lubrication oil of the engine crankcase. The lubrication oil reserve at the proper height. Start the engine. See that it operates properly with the checking of the lubrication oil pressure. See that the air compressor operates properly, that the oil level is proper height. Also check the pilot valve with the governor, adjusting the note of the pressure of the sea at which the compressor cut in and cut out are readjusted necessary. Examine the radiator fans to see if they function correctly. Operate with the air brakes. Observe that they function properly. G. Apply the brakes. Open the throttle handle and control handle slightly for each direction in the movement and determine the power is obtained. Check the battery charge with the motoring of the electrical and being with the battery circuit that's shown is charged. Check the auxiliary circuit with blown fuses and lamp circuits with defective lamps. See that the sandboxes are filled with the sanders and the sanders are operating. Inspection return of the terminal. When the locomotive arrives in the inspection terminal landed, the shift, the complete inspection of the entire locomotive arrive should be made, but the preferable should be done as soon as possible after the crew of the locomotive inspection for the mention for the paragraph 37, the investigation of the defects and difficulties reported by the crew make whatever the corrections necessary. See that the lubrication depends upon the daily application properly performed. Certain parts such as the pedestal should not be lubricated until the adjust of the previous leaving the terminal. Check the brake cylinder piston travel by place the broken, badly worn brake shoes. Recommend the position travel 2 inches or minimum 4.5 inches maximum. Equal piston travel must be obtained on all brake cylinders. 39. The inspection of every 160 locomotive hours or weekly 24-hour service. In addition, with the items covered with the shift inspection for the following should be performed. Locomotive journals inspect the proper lubrication and oil. Add if necessary recommended locomotive lube oil 55-1263, figure 50. For instructions for hacking the main journals, refer to paragraph 55. Gears. The inspection traction motor for the gears determine the receipt of the sufficient lubrication and the lubrication if necessary. For the detailed instructions, refer to paragraph 81 through 94. Lubrication oil order 55-1263, figure 50. The inspection every 680 locomotive hours monthly in the 24-hour service. In addition, with the items covered for the daily, weekly inspection following the schedule been performed, the cooling water system drained, the entire cooling system flushed, remove the sediment, refilled the clean water. If any of the antifreeze solutions is used, it may be replaced with the system that has been flushed out with the care that must be taken to have proper portion of the preventing freezing. The engine for the engine inspection maintenance, see the technically in 55-1001 generators, examine the communicator armature clearance with the fuel, brushes the brush holder's tension of the brush, generator leads, bus rings, blow out the clean with dry air with the detailed instruction, refer to paragraph 70 through 80. Traction motor, examine the communicator's armature clearance field, brushes, brush holder, tension of the brushes, motor field, leads, or blow out the clean, dry air for the detailed instruction, refer to figure 81 through 94. Contractors relays, And to examine the loose connection on the worn part, examine the tension of the fingers of the interlocks, inspect the contactor tip of the air sheath, remove the bad burn, control, examine the cleaning of the fingers, inspect the wire connection switch, and inspect all the hand switches for loose, broken parts. For the details and instructions, refer to paragraph 95 through 106. Battery. Clean up the battery compartment, clean the battery into the terminals, apply Vaseline to the terminals to prevent corrosion, clean the height of the electrolyte. For the detailed instruction of the battery, refer to paragraph 116 through 116 through, and then running gear and inspection with the running gear of the loose bolts, especially with the axle cap, the gear case, with the inspection of the wheels, of the brake shoe, the brake rigging, oil in the truck with the center plate, lubrication, 55, 12, 63, figure 50, throttle operation, operate the throttle handle, observe that the system works freely with the binding without excessive looseness resulting in wear, see all the bolts are support, adjusted the lever to the type, place the throttle in the full throttle position, see that the fuel control level on the diesel engine fuel pump is tight against the fuel stop, the locomotive that has a hydraulic throttle lack of sufficient movement may be caused by it. In the spring of the spring barrel being compressed, it's expanding the throttle by the hand or airlines, in which the case of the system should be prevented with the instruction of the vending of the paragraph 66. Wiring. See that there are no loose, broken, or high resistant connection with the control wiring or circuit. Check the throttle switch for the correcting of the setting. See paragraph 69 to make sure the contacts in good condition are making the braking properly. 41. Inspection overhaul periods greater than the monthly. At least twice a year, the fuel oil tank should be drained and cleaned. At least once a year, more often experience provided with the necessary inspection, clean, and repair gears and pinions, other driving parts, journal bearings, motor axles, journal boxes, wiring plates on the journal boxes and frame pedestals, motor nose, suspension, wheel treads, center plate, if equipped with sides of the 6, the brake rigging and air brake equipment refer to the air brake section TM55 2021. Chapter 3, Maintenance.